or an expression that I love of yours is like savor, don't scoff. And you see that as a wonderful gateway to kind of addressing greater societal issues. And I think that's an incredible motto for life.
Yeah, I do think that learning to savor and take your time is incredibly important. And I think that one of the great tragedies of food and civilization broadly as a whole is that we scoff so much now. And by scoff, I mean eat fast without thinking about it and just sort of, pile it in. And it's immediate gratification rather than taking pleasure in the small things and being mindful about it. And I think it dates back to there's a guy who I just don't think gets enough, and I'm not sure the word credit is necessarily due, but this extraordinary, he's called a psychophysicist, which is a wonderful description of a term, called Moskovitz, who we talked about the bliss point quite a lot. But basically,
what is the bliss point? Just because
sugar, salt, and fat, and a bit of umami and a bit of texture. It's basically, it's the Pringle effect or the Dorito effect. So what do you want to eat after you've had one Pringle?
Another one.
That's it.
So the bliss point, to understand it, is it's this food manufacturers have come up with this perfect balance of fat, salt, sweet, and sugar, and they've put it together, and this is called the bliss point that makes food addictive.
And that you consume it and you're hit with such a degree of bliss that you're like, I want another one.
So much dopamine.
Yeah, such dopamine.
And you also crave it, I think, to an extent. And I think that's what makes it sort of addictive. I mean, you won't necessarily get pleasure out of it, but you will just crave it and you'll want more of it. And I think that's where it gets really dangerous. And it was developed initially basically to try and get the US Army to eat more of their rations by this guy, Moskovitz. And it's an extraordinary invention, but it's basically the underpinnings of junk food because, who cares about flavor and good quality ingredients if you can just get people to scoff with sugar, salt, and fat?
And they just scoff because it's inherently this dopamine release. They're just like, I want more of it. It just feels so good.
Yeah, I think it's also that I think there is a craving to it as well. But yeah, I think you're right. I think that is what it is. And ironically, of course, everybody sort of dates this back to the 1950s. But sadly, chocolate arguably was one of the first true bliss point foods. Milk chocolate in particular, which we just learned to scoff. Now, you can savor milk chocolate too, and you should. And we'll have some vegan milk chocolate later, which we'll do that with. But, I think part of the downside for chocolate is that chocolate's got more complexity and more flavor than just about anything else on the planet. And yet we scoff it. And we scoff it because it's a really good vector, really good vehicle for adding sugar, salt, and fat and a bit of texture to. Which is where I think, going back to it, we want to savor food and we want to savor the opportunity to share and experience food.